Hi, everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of the Clear to Sand podcast. In this episode, we're bringing back Arista, and we're going to talk about Converged Unified Edge, or Q, which is going to go into security. And I think it's going to be a great topic for those who want to improve their security for their Wi-Fi networks and also their wired networks. But before we get to the topic of discussion, I want to introduce Francois here. Welcome back, Francois, our co-host.
Thank you, Hero. How are you?
I'm doing very well, thank you. And we also have two special guests, Ed from Arista and also Heather from Arista. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves for everyone? We'll start with Ed.
Oh, okay. Hey, everyone. How are you? Ed Chapman, VP of Business Development and Alliances and Wi-Fi for Arista. I'm seldom referred to as special, so I appreciate the nod. Heather?
Yeah, and I'm Heather Plane. So I'm here at Arista and I head up some product and marketing for our commercial and specifically around the Q initiatives with edge threat management.
All right. And I think this is going to be an interesting topic because we don't really touch upon security too often. And we do have a lot of listeners. And also, if you're listening to this episode, we do have video as well because we'll be showing some screen shares that will tie into our discussions. But we'll be doing our best to describe a lot of this for you. I'm kind of interested to know how Q integrates with the rest of your platform, because in our previous episodes together, we've talked about Wi-Fi and how to manage Wi-Fi, but now we're going to talk about securing that as well, right?
Yeah, that's correct. One of the things that we've done, we with Q, when we did the announcement, we actually brought in several things. One was doing an integrated dashboard, which also includes wired infrastructure, and we'll walk through that a little bit. And then how that ties into new security features and functionality that Heather will go through in regards to inclusion of a next generation firewall and secured edge or WAN connectivity with our edge threat management portfolio. So, I don't know how you want to start this, but I'm happy to go through and start launching the Q dashboard. And I'm just going to have to remind myself that we're talking to two types of audiences, one on audio and one on who's looking at visually. So actually, we want to start there.
Before you dive into the dashboard itself, can you tell people where this came from? Because for me, this is new from Arista. I'm used to the data center side products that you guys have and the wireless, and the security aspect of this is very new.
It is very new. So, we've been looking at this space for a while. We understood that we had customers who wanted a single dashboard, a dashboard that incorporated the management of the Wi-Fi that we talked about previously, included wired infrastructure, which is something new we've launched with what we call CloudVision Q, Converged Unified Edge, and that the key components of this Converged Unified Edge, because when we look at what our customers were telling us, they really wanted a solution that provided Wi-Fi, wired, and security, and essentially at the edge of the infrastructure, where devices, whether they're IoT devices or client devices like cell phones, iPads, PCs, IP cameras, what have you. You need to both monitor those devices successfully, understand how they're accessing the network infrastructure, whether it's wired or wireless. And then you have to make sure that they're secured in terms of their access into that infrastructure. And we brought that all into one platform that you can manage and configure and monitor. I know, Heather, I don't know if you want to, Heather's really our expert on the security portfolio, as well as what we're providing on secured WAN edge connectivity. I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that, Heather.
Yeah, so I think you described well, just to follow up on that. So everything about Q is essentially designed to build and extend the network. So more than ever, most businesses today of all sizes are more and more globally dispersed. And what you've got with our Cognitive Unified Edge is everything that you need to build that and provide, as Ed said, wired and wireless access, the networking components to extend and power the network. And then the piece that we're drilling in on a little bit here is the security aspect. Of course, it's one thing to build the network, but you've got to be able to provide a secure network as well. So the security aspect essentially consists of the things that you need, such as protecting the network from malware, protecting from all the devices that are coming onto the network that they're not necessarily corporate controlled these days. So you've got to be able to detect malicious links, things that are present on devices that are not necessarily secured through IT. So it includes things like web filtering, intrusion prevention, virus blocking, and all those types of things.
Awesome.
Yeah,
So-
and I know we started on this talking about it from a converged unified edge, but actually it's cognitive unified edge. One of the things, that key term there is cognitive. It really is applying, techniques to bring forth, simplify the management plane for our customers. And when we launched this Q solution, we were focused on delivering a solution that actually would allow us to also penetrate into maybe some customer segments that Arista hasn't done in the past. Your smaller customers, and what I mean small, people who have maybe 500 employees or less, and we all know that they have, let's just say they have a thin IT, meaning that they don't have a large amount of expertise. They probably have one person who's managing it that who is trying to manage, the Wi-Fi infrastructure, the wired infrastructure, and then, getting, applying security on top of that. And by delivering a single dashboard and then having, simplified ways of managing that infrastructure, it really provides a great solution for someone who may not have that multiple people, managing the infrastructure. They don't have a separate person doing security. They don't have a separate person managing the Wi-Fi infrastructure or someone managing the campus infrastructure. So that was also a goal of ours. And that cognitive piece is, simplified dashboards and really elevating, if there is an issue, being able to troubleshoot it in a way that you don't have to be a CCIE or an ACE certified network engineer from an Arista perspective, and that's part of the solution that we hope to talk about here.
Awesome, yeah, because we've seen this in the previous episodes we've recorded in terms of troubleshooting. So I really would like to see how that plays out in the security solution as well.
Okay, well, would this be a good time just to do a quick run through about how what we've added to the dashboard, and then bring up the security aspects? But I'll first probably start with what we've done from adding the PoE switch visibility and functionality from a dashboard perspective, if that's okay, unless there's any other questions that we can answer prior to going into it.
I think we can dive right into it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, let me go ahead and for those of you who may be listening on the podcast, I'll be bringing up a screen here, which is our, go ahead.
I was going to say, so first question, how did you get to the dashboard? Do you guys have like a specific URL, or is it, because I know sometimes it's easy to get the dashboard and sometimes we kind of look for, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I absolutely understand what you mean. So obviously, if someone is an Arista CloudVision Q customer, they will be given a login name and a domain to access, and we'll send that information to them. And then they'll log in, and they'll actually, and again, this is we both have a visual and audio audience here, but when they log into CloudVision Q, what they'll see is a complete screen that will have a variety of, on the left-hand side, it will have some information about dashboard, monitor, configure, troubleshoot, floor plans, reports, and the system. So it actually is giving you everything you need to manage the infrastructure, both from a wire, Wi-Fi, and we'll talk about the edge threat management piece. And once it's there, once you log in, you actually get this dashboard look of what's going on in your network infrastructure. And one of the first things you'll see is a client journey, and how many clients there are now. In the example you'll see, if you're looking at this visually, it's a simplified way of looking at it. We've only got 3 clients. And then you'll see what's happening on the different phases of them accessing the infrastructure, whether you've got, is it associating correctly? Is it authenticated into it? And then you've got this network piece. Is it facing any network failures? And then maybe more of a consolidated viewpoint of that, how many of those are online? And for those of you not looking at this, there's actually an online thing. And it's just we've got 3 clients, or all of them are online. Now, what we've added into this, hopefully I've answered your question there. If there's any additional data.
Yeah, no, I was going to say on top of what you said, if you go to the arista.com website, there's actually at the very top, there's a Wi-Fi Launchpad quick link. And then the URL is launchpad.wifi.arista.com. And then here you have the different tiles to the different, dashboards you guys offer. And I believe you have one for Q in there.
That is correct. That is correct. And then what you'll see is when you launch into it, you'll see the dashboard and all these, the client journey, which is a sort of a one-stop shop to see what's going on in your network. One of the things we've added here is the ability to actually take a look at what's going on from the switches that the APs are attached to. And so you'll actually see, and I went in, I did monitor, we've got Wi-Fi, WIPs, which is wireless intrusion protection alerts, what's going on in the network, and then it says switch. And obviously what we have on this particular example, which is a simple example, I didn't want to show you hundreds of switches and devices, but we actually will show a switch and how they're attached to the infrastructure. And in this particular case, we've got a 710, which is a new product we've delivered into the market. It either comes in 12 or 16 port configurations, and it's really set for maybe these smaller customers, but we also have other switches that potentially would show up here. And when you click on that, it'll actually tell you how many access points and with the access point distribution, but it will actually give you the ability to then peer into that to that switch and see which APs are attached to it, how they're connected, what the link speed is, the power source, and will actually give you their status, where they're active, inactive, and connected. And if you want to see a little bit more detail, again, this is similar to what you guys have seen before, where you always have that drill down capability. You can start to understand more information relative to that AP on that port in terms of what sort of network usage traffic it has, any clients that are associated with her in terms on whether they're seeing any poor performance, what their data rate is, the top applications by the type of traffic. In this case, apparently someone's been doing a lot of Windows updating. It's the fourth one. Most of the other stuff is things that I think you would expect to see. And then the different types of spectrums and stuff that's available on that switch. And then the clients that are associated on that AP through that PoE port. So you're getting the ability to understand the access point, how it's attached to the switch, how that switch is then communicating with that access point and all the clients that are associated with that, and any behavioral issues in terms of applications, network usage traffic, or any issues that may be happening, and be able to drill down on each one of these. Very similar to what we have had on the access points in the past, but now we've extended it into including the networking infrastructure. And so this again is a simplified way of providing this information to our customers. And it's simple to use, easy to use. You don't have to be, we're not forcing someone to go to a network CLI. A lot of customers may not know what a CLI is, for example. In many cases, they can go do this and get a lot of this information straight from the application. Now, that's what we've done to add the networking aspect to this. And obviously, we're going to be adding more and more to this functionality over time. But this is, bringing in the complete picture from a networking perspective, including the AP, the applications that run on top of that, the connectivity, and the switch now. But we've also added security. So before I hand it over to Heather to talk about security, and I'll have to stop this screen and Heather will bring up her screen. Are there any questions that you may have about what we've done here from a switch perspective?
I don't have any questions, but I think it looks good because you made you made reference to CLI, and I know with other systems, when I try to look at data that you've presented on screen, I'm just staring at numbers, right? So you don't really see a trend. You don't get graphs that really give you a full view of what's happening, and then in correlation with the device that's connected to it. So I think it's nice that you've added the switch and AP, tie them together into the dashboard and be able to gather or see this information quickly.
Yeah, and I think
Thank
it's
you.
great. Like, you know, we're kind of used as network guys. We're used in configuring our equipment with CLI and SSH and all of this. But more and more, it's, you know, it's we're starting to do it in dashboards now, I guess. So it's nice if the information is clearly stated and if we can get access to the information we need. You know, for a switch, for me, like as a Wi-Fi guy, I would need to know, you know, the PoE budget. The PoE information you had was great. Link speed. I noticed you had a 10 meg link.
Yeah.
I don't know if you did that on purpose.
That's a good question. You know, this is I think there's some testing that's going on here, and I was surprised too when I went into this because I haven't seen a 10 meg connection.
But sometimes they
in
do
a
that
long,
on
long
purpose
time.
to to
Yes.
check if the AP would go
Right
up or
here.
something. So is
Yeah.
that's interesting. And so these type of information, it's nice. And you know, CPU utilization, oh my gosh, that's really nice. And you can you have it per port, which is interesting here. So you're able to know which port consumed you know, which part of the CPU. That's interesting to me. I've never seen that. So yeah, this information, like you said, in the monitor, I think you're in the monitor dashboard right now. It's nice, so you can see all of that. And I'm guessing you can update the switch like from here. I see a little update button here, but
Yeah, you can update the switch. You can also update. In this case, it's actually referring to updating the APs that are on that switch as
okay.
well. And
Okay.
in fact, the average CPU utilization, what you're reading there is the average CPU utilization of the APs, not
Okay,
carved up
not the
across.
switch. Okay.
Yeah, no. But the other thing, and we haven't talked about this, all these products will actually come pre-configured to, so when you unbox them and connect them into you know your especially if you think about, you know, I was talking about the thin IT, these are all zero touch provision. So if you were going to unbox them and connect them at a location, let's say it's a retail site, maybe it's a, you know, a restaurant or a doctor's office, for example, and you plug the switch in, you plugged it in, it would actually get all the configuration information automatically from Q, and pre-provision that and instantiate it into the management application with the appropriate IP address, you know, all the rest of that stuff. And the same thing with the APs that would then be attached to it, because you know, again, it's that way of simplifying the operational model. You know, there's a lot of times you may not have the ability to send someone who's, you know, a CCIE or somebody who really knows networking. If you're able to just have someone go tell someone, plug it in, you know, make sure this cable that's been run from the AP is plugged into, you know, the switch. If you can do that, which most people can because they seem to be able to do it at their house, we're going to be able to get you up and running, right? And they don't have to touch it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, you eliminate having to waste so much time pre-provisioning equipment wherever an engineer is at, whether that's at HQ or whatever, and then having to ship that equipment again out somewhere else, contract another person to maybe do the CLI piece that you need done. You eliminate all that. It's just you plug it in, it's going to contact the cloud once it has internet, download the configuration, you're up and running.
It's truly plug and play. And all the you know, I'd ask your listeners and viewers to go back to the previous podcasts that we've done. All the quality of experience application dashboards, everything that we talked about prior are all applicable now, even including on top of the wired infrastructure as well. We spent a lot of time going back off those, but we've already spoken of those, and I really want to provide some time now to Heather to talk about the new capability we've introduced from a security perspective, both with the next generation firewall and being able to securely connect locations in the customer infrastructure. So I'm going to stop my share here unless I think we've answered or had any additional questions that we may have had around the new solution we're providing in regards to wired infrastructure support and switches. Then I'll hand it over to Heather to talk about what we've introduced with the edge threat management.
Thanks, Ed. I will share my screen now. And so what I'm showing here is the edge threat management dashboard so that we can delve into the security aspect of this. So Ed was showing CloudVision Q, which is the starting point for everything, whether it's the Wi-Fi access points, the switches, and edge threat management. Everything starts from the same place. And this is the dashboard for the security component of that. So what I'm showing here is multiple NG firewall appliances and also micro edge appliances. Let me put that into perspective if we take a look at what it looks like with more like a network diagram. So the edge threat management is what I was showing you there. So we'll go back to that in a moment. And then NG Firewall does everything like intrusion prevention, filtering, web filtering, application control, virus blocking, threat prevention, and all those kinds of things. So you can deploy one NG Firewall in one of the offices, sometimes in a headquarter location, or it can be deployed in the public cloud like AWS or Azure, for example. And then I'll also show you our micro edge devices, which are typically deployed in a branch office. The micro edge devices are very lightweight edge devices that connect branch offices up to the corporate network and optimize the internet at the branch office. They also provide their own security layer with web filtering and threat prevention as well. And they connect into the corporate network, and you can share policies across the whole network from the ETM dashboard.
I do have a question about NG Firewall and the micro edge. And that's around, when does someone make a decision of, do I go with the NG Firewall or do I go with the micro edge? Like, how does somebody make that kind of decision?
Well, there are options to go for both, but typically you would go for an NG Firewall in the corporate headquarters. If you've got one office, for example, you would pick an NG Firewall. If you've got one headquarter office, and let's say you have, 35 branch offices, then you would put the micro edge devices in the branch office. So that's the typical way that edge threat management is deployed. Now you can cross over a little bit with that, but that'll work the best to get all of your security policies pushed out across all of the corporate network in the same way.
Okay. And if you have multiple big offices, I'm guessing you can also have multiple NG firewalls and build those VPNs in between the NG firewalls?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have plenty of corporate offices, you can connect multiple NG firewalls all up together so that you've got the same internet connectivity, policies, access to the same corporate data, all on the same corporate network. Yes.
Awesome.
All right, so let's take a look at the edge threat management dashboard a little bit here. So you can see that for the one that I'm looking at here, I'm logged into an account where I've got 13 appliances. So if you can't see the screen, there's 13 appliances. Some of those are NG Firewall appliances. Some of those are micro edge appliances. And you can see a nice diagram of where they're all located across the United States here. So you can get a visual look of what is where. On the dashboard, what we're seeing here is an aggregated view of all of the NG Firewall appliances and all the micro edge appliances. So if we look down a little bit and see what's been going on across the network. So intrusions detected, that's across all the appliances that I have, across all the appliances that I'm looking at here. And you can drill down into specific networks, you can drill down into specific appliances. So it starts with a 10,000-foot view of everything and lets you drill down as much as you want to there. So we can see that there were quite a few intrusions detected here, so in different locations. Other things that we can see here, we can take a look at application usage across the whole of the corporate network. Some alerts that I may want to be aware of. We can see here that there's a couple of appliances where the swap usage is particularly high, so that's something to keep an eye on there. Now, I mentioned that you can drill down into specific networks. So you can take all of those appliances, I think there were about 18 of them, you can separate those up into specific networks. So let's imagine I want to add one more appliance. I'm going to add an NG firewall as I add that to another office location. So I'm going to add that.
What you call, sorry, Heather, to cut you, what you call a network, it's like a connection between multiple sites.
Yeah, exactly. I'm segregating some of those appliances that I'm managing from this one account, and I'm saying 3 of them are for a particular campus deployment that I'm calling Acme Auto Parts. And in that one, I've got 2 NG firewall appliances and I've got 1 micro edge that are just part of the Acme Auto Parts network.
And these 3 appliances are located in different locations throughout the United States. We can see it on the map here.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got one that's located in San Jose, and then a couple of other corporate offices which are distributed across the country. So you can see one's in Ohio there and one's in Wisconsin over there. Okay,
so when you're creating a network, it's not necessarily like a subnet that you're creating. It's more like this can be a customer or a company, and the devices are added to their network. Like because you have a network, you have on the left 3 different networks. One of them is called Acme Auto Parts.
Yeah, exactly. So in this particular case, I may be managing one company that has 3 different setups that I want to manage individually, or I may be acting as a managed service provider and I'm managing 3 completely separate companies with their own individual devices.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So we just added the this one over here, which is an NG firewall appliance. So if I want to get those 3 offices talking together, it's really easy to set up connectivity between them. So if I look at this one, I'm going to enable that to be able to be set up as part of the corporate network. So I'm simply going to enable it, and it's got its own subnets that it's allowing other offices to be able to see. So I'll select that one. Over here, I'm going to select a micro edge device in a branch office. Again, I'm going to decide what subnets I'm okay with being accessible from the outside. And then the one we just added here, I'm going to go to that one as well. And I'm going to enable a couple of subnets on that one. And then in order to connect them all up together, what I can do here is synchronize the VPN settings between them. And what it's doing now is, instead of having to go into each individual device, set up a VPN server, download the config files for that, and then set up the different offices, just clicking that button connected them all together. So I've now got a corporate network across those 3 locations simply by adding them to one network and then setting up VPN networks with the click of a button. So really, really easy to do that.
Yeah, and it looks very SD-WAN like, where you've got these units in different locations. They know of the subnets that are behind each one. And all you're really doing is enabling VPN connectivity between each one. But what a lot of us are used to is using command line to manually type that in. And I know how difficult that is, especially when you don't do it often, right? You have to make sure settings match on every single device. But in your dashboard, in this particular network, you have all these devices added to the network, and you're just going in and saying enable VPN for this particular site and allow these subnets to be traversed through the VPN. And it's literally just a button that you're pressing that says sync the VPN settings. And so you're just pushing that VPN configuration to each one rather than logging in and doing the command line. You're abstracting that portion for us.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the most time-consuming workflows when you first set something up. So we probably saved at least 30 minutes, if not hours, because VPN configuration doesn't just take some time, it's also prone to errors as well. So definitely without this functionality, we'd be getting a lot of calls to our support to help them through it. So enabling people to be able to do that with just the click of a button is a real workflow time saver, that's for sure.
And in this view, would you be able to add a third-party VPN? I know there's a lot of companies who may have a partner that they create a VPN with. Is that done here, or run us through that kind of idea there?
You can do that, but not quite so easily as we've got the workflow connecting up NG firewalls and micro edge devices. You can certainly relatively easy and still through GUI with the click of a few buttons connect up to other VPN servers or other VPN devices. You would do that part by going into the GUI of the NG firewall or the micro edge device. But that one click set it up to everything and abstracting the workflow, that's between NG firewalls or micro edge devices, and a handful or hundreds of them.
Yeah, so that's really the benefit there of having the same types of devices under Arista, is you're not, if you've got an organization where you have different, I guess, vendor firewalls, it's going to be very problematic to set up these VPN tunnels. And so when Wi-Fi users need to access some other resource at another site, it's going to take a while to set up that VPN, but in this case, it's simple point and clicks and syncing VPN settings.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
And in terms of like network traffic, do you like, is everything centralized, or like if site B talks to site C, can they talk directly, or do they go back to like site A to the main site? Do you know what I mean? Is it like a mesh created in between those three sites, or do you have like one centralized
Like a hub and spoke
core? Yeah, core in the network.
Yeah, it is a mesh style of network, and it's setting up all the tunnels required to do that. And actually underneath, what it's using when you do the one-click sync there, it's using WireGuard, which does very much of a peer-to-peer model rather than the hub and spoke there.
So what's the limitation then in terms of how many nodes you can have, like how many appliances you can have?
I'm not sure if there is a hard-coded limitation. I'm not sure what the upper limit is. Actually,
let's try.
Well, on this one, I only have 18 appliances to try it on. If I come back, we'll stick a few hundred in there and see if we can get that to work.
Francois wants to break the demo already.
If it works with 18, it's already pretty good, right?
Yeah, exactly. Imagine the configuration it would take to individually set up 18 devices with your client, your servers, your peer-to-peer. It's a lot of configuration, that's for sure. And on that note, another thing that you can do really easily at the branch office, often the internet connectivity may not be as good at headquarters, or even across the whole network. You might want to optimize internet traffic for certain types of applications. So you can see here, we can add some WAN rules. And if you add WAN rules to one network, it will push out those WAN rules to all of your micro edge devices. So if we take a look at that, we can pick one. Let's see if we can pick any application that we like here. So if I pick GoToMeeting, for example, and add that in there, then what we can do there is say for all GoToMeeting traffic, I want that to use the lowest latency one, for example, or I can say a specific one that I know is my best behaving one. If I have LTE ones as well, because our micro edge devices also support LTE as an extra one or a failover backup, you can say lowest latency, not including LTE, for example. And then once you've set that up, we'll call it optimize, go to meeting. Then you can push that out to all your micro edge devices across the network. So again, huge time saving there. You don't need to go to each branch office or even each appliance remotely. You can do it for hundreds of them all at once with the click of a button there.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think it's, again, it really looks like SD-WAN type a conversation there. I don't know if that's what you guys want to call it, but being able to push this kind of rule or policy set to each firewall without having to code it into each one is really the benefit for someone like me, where this rule needs to be applied to each site, and I don't want to have to spend hours trying to create this configuration on each device.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Raul, the other thing you'll notice is that you're not having to know this particular port number or you know what is a difference between Zoom or GoToMeeting to apply that quality of service or rule to it. We actually have that ability. Again, it's a simplification from a dashboard perspective. It's a simplification so that someone doesn't have to know every port number or what that application is. It's very easy to find. We actually have the ability to identify a wide variety of applications, very similar to what we have on our quality of experience dashboard, but now applied to the wide area network capabilities.
And let me go in and show you a little bit more on the security side. So what you can do is you can get GUI access to any of the NG firewall or micro edge devices. And I'll show you what the NG firewalls look like with a couple of examples. So you can see here that there's lots of features that you can use. If I compare that to another one, there's a lot more on the other one. Let me just let that reload. But
so
what
here we're just to give a bit more context here, we're drilling down directly into the network equipment, right? Into the firewall.
Yeah, exactly. So what I did there is I clicked on remote access to go from the Edge Threat Management dashboard into one specific NG firewall, so we can get even more granular there.
Awesome.
Now, as we go between those different ones, you'll notice there that you have the option of enabling or disabling all the features and functionality. Or if we look at this view, what you can see here is I've enabled just what I need to use. When we were talking before, Ed mentioned you don't need to necessarily have CCIE to use some of our dashboards. That's definitely the intent with the way that we're showing and allowing people to get to know the NG firewall. Start with web filters, start with virus blocker, remove all the others completely from the UI and add them when you're ready to do that. So this really simplifies the starting point of getting to know the product and making the GUI really fit exactly what you're interested in. So a couple of features to highlight. So web filtering, for example, it makes sure that malicious links in websites are blocked. If we take a student environment, for example, web filtering is particularly useful there because you want to make sure that you've got age-appropriate content only onto a school network. So with web filter, for example, what you can do is you can look for specific categories that you care about or don't care about. So if I look for adult material, I may want to block that completely on a school network, so I don't even have to worry about it there. There's certain things that you can set up. So this is web filter enabling you to allow or block certain categories of websites. So adult content would be one, streaming media is another category. You may want to say that we don't want any students accessing any streaming media during study periods, for example. Another good one for students is games. So we want to block games, and you can block games just between the hours of 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. and then allow them, for example, but make sure that students are focusing on what they should be focusing on during the daytime for sure.
I know that URLs tend to change rapidly as new websites come up. How is this updated on your end? What do you guys do to make sure this stays to the latest version, keeping up with all the threats that are out there?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's not a set it and forget it in the latest version. So you've got to upgrade to the next version in order to get the latest URLs. You are right. There are new ones coming up every single day. Well, what this does is it's not using just what it knows about locally to make the assessments. It contacts a cloud-based component that has the latest categorized web URLs every day, and it can access those afresh every day to get new ones. So that's working with some proprietary technology that we use that is built by Webroot, who are experts in that, and they have multiple ways that they continually categorize the web every single day to make updates on that, so that we can rely on that technology to make sure that we've got the latest and greatest at any given moment. I'm going to go back to the apps here, and another one to look at is threat prevention. So threat prevention, I'm going to turn that on. And a lot of the features here, if you're using it for the first time, you can simply say, I want to use threat prevention and turn it on. And then it will use some defaults and it will start protecting the network. If you want to go and tweak some configuration, you can do that after you've used the defaults and got to know it for a little bit later. Threat prevention is an interesting one to call out. What threat prevention is doing is it's looking only at an IP address to determine whether internet traffic it sees is safe or not safe. And it does that by checking the IP address against a reputation service. If the reputation comes back clean, there's nothing to worry about for it, then that network traffic can be blocked. If it comes back suspicious or high risk, for example, then it can be blocked immediately so that it never gets to the network. And again, out of the box, it will come and it will make sure any high risk traffic is absolutely blocked. If you want to be a little more conservative, you can put that down to suspicious. You don't want to block too much web traffic, but there are options there on how to configure that.
If a site gets blocked accidentally, can somebody come in here and whitelist it? And then also on the opposite, if one somehow gets passed through the reputation, can you block that URL?
Yeah, certainly. So we have the concept of pass sites where you could say, we're absolutely sure that Arista is safe, so we're going to put that in there. Arista would come back with 100% clean reputation, of course, anyway. But if it didn't, you can put a pass site on there, because there are some things that are blocked and it doesn't quite fit the way you see the network. So, for example, proxy analyzers or something like that, you may want to allow those. So you can put some pass sites. You can also put some rules in there as well. So if there are certain types of condition, certain things like a host name includes a certain type of thing, then I want to pass all traffic, no matter what that threat level was set to do. So yeah, it's very configurable. The defaults are easy, and then the configuration that you can do there are as powerful as you would want them to get.
So here you're showing everything at the NG level, but I'm guessing we can do all of that configuration at the Unified Threat Management dashboard if we want to push it to multiple devices, right?
Yes, if we go back to our Edge Threat Management dashboard, then yeah, you can set up some policies. You can configure one of your appliances exactly the way you want it to be configured, and then choose that one as the master appliance to push out everything that you've set up and you've tested and you know and like to any new appliance that you add on the network.
Okay, interesting. So you can kind of clone an existing network if you're deploying new equipment.
Yeah, so there's some things that you can just push out from the top level, like when I showed you those WAN rules, you can set those up here and then push them out. There's other things where you may want to tweak it first on a specific sandpit, for example, and then push them out to all of your other appliances afterwards.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And then one other thing I will show you on that is talking of security. We also have an integration with our Edge Threat Management dashboard to endpoint security vendors as well. So, for example, if you're using Bitdefender or Malwarebytes or Webroot as endpoint security, you can configure that so that you can see all those endpoints and, in fact, kick off endpoint security scans directly from the Edge Threat Management dashboard. And it just makes it really, really easy so that you can go from one cloud-based management portal to another without having to log in and out for them both. You can go directly to those from here.
Yeah, it's a real neat integration with other partners.
Yeah. And one other thing to show you. So let's say, for example, I'm going on vacation and I'm going to count on Ed to help me while I'm away. So I can add...
Big mistake there, Heather. Big mistake. I would never, don't count on me.
Noted. In that case, I'm only going to give you read-only access.
Oh,
Ed.
not read-only. Okay.
So you only get the annoying emails, you know, and
Exactly.
you cannot do anything about it.
Exactly. I can't do anything about it.
Yeah, so you can give other people the ability to help you. And then from there, they can look at all of your appliances, or I can say, you know, based on what we know, I'd like you to look after a couple of appliances for me. So I can select your access down to the appliance level, or I can say everything and give him complete full access, the same as me while I'm on vacation, for example.
Okay, so that's good because you don't want to share the one admin credential. I'm assuming you've got some sort of history of what a particular user is doing on the dashboard and what they're configuring, some sort of trace or trail.
Yeah, no, we absolutely do. So here's an audit history. And if I gave Ed access to those appliances, I would be able to see when he's logged in or logged out with a full audit history here. That'll tell me everything, like if anybody's added an appliance, if anybody has done a remote access to an appliance or anything like that. I can go through this in some detail and take a look at what's been going on there. And the important thing there is that you don't share your own username and password, of course. You invite somebody else to have the access that you want.
I can see this being very useful for MSPs, where they kind of take care of networks of multiple people, and they want to give, you know, their customer access to the dashboard for, monitoring purposes. Then you can, I can see this being useful. You can just allow your customer to have access to the dashboard.
Yeah, exactly. It works very well for MSPs with its multi-tenant capabilities, its ability to split things up into various customer networks as well.
For these really small sites, does the appliance also have built-in Wi-Fi?
There are a couple that do have built-in Wi-Fi. Generally, you would want to use one or more access points to build up Wi-Fi access in your office, as many as are needed for the size of the office. There are options to have an integrated desktop appliance that can give you a single SSID so that you've got that all in one simple appliance as well.
It's really dependent upon, how many clients you think you're going to have at that site, what sort of applications you envision that you're going to be running. The usual things you would take a look at from a Wi-Fi perspective. But absolutely, we do have appliances that integrate the secured edge functionality or the firewall functionality with an integrated Wi-Fi AP.
Cool.
But the other thing that you can do there too is a lot of those appliances also have PoE ports on them.
Yeah.
So if you need additional access points. It's very easy to add them by just leveraging the PoE ports on those devices and then powering up additional access points.
Okay. Cool. I mean, I like that you could do everything from the main dashboard, but if you really wanted to get granular, you could still log into the individual firewall itself. I know there's a lot of other solutions where it's just the dashboard only and you can't really do much to the individual firewall.
You have to call the support.
Yeah, or there is a component of CLI, right? Like you have to go log into it and do something very specific. There's a lot that you have here, a lot of different like parts of the dashboard. I don't know what you call it, like little cards that you add. So if there's something you want to see or always see when you log into the dashboard, that's easily visible, like seeing the number, like the most common applications that are being used. Like one of the firewalls we looked at, it looked like everyone was just streaming, using a streaming service, so you can see everyone just using Disney Plus, Netflix, and
sounds like my house. Especially now that summer's starting.
Yeah.
And so now you're diving into reports. I think reports is a good feature. I love reports and anything you can provide, because maybe I don't want to always log in and manually look at little dashboards. Maybe I just want a report to be pushed out, scheduled, and even send it to management, right? Or you can send it to your client, your end user who you're managing this for, and be like, here's your web usage. Like it seems like maybe you're exceeding your bandwidth because all of it is all web streaming media. Like that's easily seen here with these pie graphs.
Yeah, no, you can certainly do exactly that. So you can log in and look at as many reports as you want, and there's hundreds of them that come out of the box, and you can certainly customize them to get the information that you care about most. And you can absolutely set them up so that administrators or whoever you want to add will get an emailed summary of that report. So they don't even have to log in. They can get their summary once a week or once a day or whatever they would like, and just scan it, see if there's anything of interest there to take action on, or see what's been going on across the network.
So you're showing us the NG firewall interface. What about the micro edge? Do you want to show us the micro edge interface?
Yeah, let's go into one of those. So for the micro edge one, let me find this one over here. So this is a micro edge device, and this has got a couple of WANs, and it's got an LTE interface as well. So what's nice about this is I can have a look at the micro edge device, because there's different types. And what I can see here is a micro edge device. So this is going to be a device that's installed at a branch office, and it's being used to provide connectivity back to a corporate headquarters. So I'm looking at a network layout grid at the moment where it shows me clearly that there's a couple of WANs there. There's an LTE interface. This particular appliance does have a Wi-Fi integration option on the desktop appliance there. And you can also see that there's a virtual interface. So there is a VPN tunnel that's been set up, probably the one that we just created earlier. And then I can see the LANs that are part of that as well. So in this interface, everything looks pretty similar in some ways. So you can take a look at what's been going on across the network. In the case of the micro edge device, you're definitely interested in how applications are being routed over the available WANs. I can see here everything has actually been going over WAN 1, but I could configure that to do different things as well. You can see that there's definitely, looks like eBay has been blocked a lot recently. So that's an interesting thing to highlight. That's probably something I would drill down into. It could well be that in the case of this particular network, the category shopping has been blocked for my business. So of course you can go play with eBay, but please do that after the hour of 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. in the evening. So whoever's tried that, they tried a few times and they weren't successful. successful in doing that because it was blocked with web filter.
Yeah, a lot more than few.
They didn't give up. They didn't give up. Something must have been on sale there. And yeah, interestingly enough, we were talking about Disney Plus area as well earlier. So Disney Plus has definitely been used on this network. CNN is the news site of choice, I see. And somebody's been scanning Reddit as well. So I can get a lot of information about that branch office here.
Hey, Heather, and one of the things you're showing here, because it's, and this is consistent with what everything we do from a CloudVision Cube perspective, is that you actually get a historical look at your network infrastructure. So you can actually go back in time if someone calls up and says, hey, there was some sort of issue, a couple hours ago. And as you can see in this graph, this is top applications bandwidth by time. You can actually identify what was going on, what applications were being used, what you were having a problem accessing what, and then we can actually go back in time and really figure out what the issue may be, even though that condition may not exist anymore.
And is that historical data kept locally on the device, or is it in the cloud?
It is kept locally on the device, and then the Edge Threat Management dashboard will pull that and have its own display of it as well. But yeah, some NG firewall appliances do have separate servers to do that. But in the case of the Arista NG firewall and Micro Edge, that is supported on the box. So depending on how much storage you have on your appliance is how much historical data you can have there.
Okay, so then it'll just overwrite some of that data based on whatever that interval is, however long it goes back. Like if it's the last 30 days, it'll just overwrite it.
Yeah, it will probably send the administrator a notice if it's getting down to the edge at the end of the storage so that they know that that will happen, but it won't get itself into trouble. It will start to reuse the space and overwrite it, yes.
Okay. One thing that I was interested in, and I don't know if I just missed this, but you already had appliances in your dashboard. What if I purchase a new one? Like how does that get deployed in the dashboard?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So let me go to the appliances here, and we can. I was going to remove one and then add one, but I might not do that. I'll just show you how to add one. So you can simply click on add the appliance here. If you have a physical appliance, you just turn it upside down and read the serial number off it, and then you can enter it here. So by serial number. If you don't have a physical appliance, and one of the things I should mention actually is that NG Firewall can be deployed in VMware. It can be deployed on AWS or Azure as well. And then every appliance has a unique identifier number that it is given. And then you can enter that into here. And then you can add the appliance by that unique identifier number. And then once you add it, it's going to be in your appliance list to start configuring along with all the others.
Okay, and then from there, that's when you just add it to a network, and then you can start pushing the configuration.
Yeah, exactly. And you can do such things as add licenses here as well. Anything that you want to do with the appliance, you can do it from here. So you don't have to physically go to the box. You can purchase a license to do what you want, add it directly from the dashboard here. Where it says update software here, I should also point out that both NG Firewall and the Micro Edge device have the concept of automatic updates. So you don't have to go in and update your software. You can turn on automatic updates and it will do that for you, so that once you've installed it and configured it, you can actually just leave it to run for a whole year if you want, and it will keep doing its thing and it will keep itself updated as well.
Okay. And because we're talking about these appliances and how you guys are now having this unified view of things, I know that this is a very new addition to Arista. I think March is, it's May right now. You guys just announced this in March, and you already have this in your dashboard. How do you envision like the client journey looking? Are we going to be able to see all right, there's one site that has an issue. I can see it's a Wi-Fi issue, or, you know, quote unquote Wi-Fi issue. Are we able to see that client journey and see through it with these micro edges and NG firewalls in that path as well?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think the answer to that is yes. You're going to be able to figure out, you know, through that dashboard, you're going to see how is that device connecting, authenticating, and then as we go through the network configuration, you know, what is the applications, where is that application potentially seeing an issue, and then as we go forward, you're going to see that correlated between any firewall rules that they may have, any you know, micro edge, should we, you know, automatically apply, you know, if it's a Zoom issue and we identify that that problem is not necessarily within the local campus infrastructure, it may reside across that wide area network infrastructure, maybe apply a rule automatically. Now, this is not available yet. I will say this, but we already know, you know, that we can identify the application. We already know what's happening in the local campus infrastructure, and if there's any behavior that we can change automatically to rectify that issue there. Maybe it's, you know, that there's you know, an option to put another AP because you've got too many clients, or maybe you need to you know, you modify the channels a little bit, or change the behavior, update a driver on your PC, whatever it may be. But if it's not there locally, maybe again we will signal back to the secured edge solution. Why don't you, what's the current rules for Zoom across the wide area network? Are we seeing any unusual behavior there in regards to the latency? Is it going across the most appropriate WAN connection? And automatically be able to change that policy to enhance the Zoom performance across that infrastructure. So I think that's absolutely where we're planning on going. We have the tools necessary to do that. You're launching these solutions, you know, with a single application, and you know, you're going to see that tight linkage between what's happening at the edge of the infrastructure all the way through the security policy, as well as the you know, secured edge functionality. And there may be other things, well, maybe it's, you know, I'm having some sort of issue running this application. It turns out it's nothing to do with what's going on site. We just have a misconfigured firewall rule, and how do we address that? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, because we had that previous episode where we talked about network assurance and trying to identify where those issues are. And I think this is a common problem for organizations who don't have specialized people, right? We don't have specialized Wi-Fi experts on the team. How do I know if this is a Wi-Fi issue, or maybe a WAN issue, something, or which WAN is it? Should I automatically move to another WAN, or a switch? VLAN
be a switch issue, right? Yeah, exactly. You may have a misconfigured VLAN or VXLAN, and we're stitching this together. So again, you don't necessarily need to be a CLI jockey. You don't need to be a CIE. We're going to correlate this information. We actually launched something about I think it was September of last year, where we talked about this concept of a network data lake. And that data lake really is being able to pool all this information from all these different you know, dashboards, and being able to correlate the information between a Wi-Fi AP, a PoE switch, and the network architecture, whether it's, you know, campus switches, whether it's data center switches, or the security and firewall infrastructure that we have. And by pooling all that information, we can correlate that information, really try to identify where that root cause is happening, where the issue is. Because you're right, there are many cases, it's so easy for people to say, it's the Wi-Fi issue. In fact, that's probably what happens 99% of the time. First time someone calls up, oh, my Wi-Fi's having a problem. And that's in many cases, that's not the case. It's a completely different issue. But that's what the perception is for a lot of people, right? It's a perception whether you're at your enterprise, or it's the perception when your kid comes in and goes, you know, at your house, you know, Zoom isn't working, the Wi-Fi's messed up. So giving the tools in an easy to understand way is really where we're going at. Being able to correlate and say, you know, It's not the Wi-Fi, it's not the switch, it's not the network infrastructure, and maybe being able to potentially point out, it's actually Zoom. You know, there's and that way, because that is, you know, we've all been there from a Wi-Fi manager's perspective. In many cases, we're the guys that get kicked first, right? It's the first people to blame,
firsthand.
right?
It's always the network.
It's always the network.
Yeah. And now it's always the Wi-Fi.
Exactly. So giving you the tools, whether you are a CCIE or an Arista certified engineer, or if you're not, and be able to quickly identify where that issue is happening and pinpointing, you know, root cause, that's where we're going across the spectrum.
Yeah, so obviously there's a lot more that you guys want to add to this. You're still putting it together. Again, it's only been a few months since I've seen the announcement of your security product. And even when I think back to some of the previous mobility field days, there's been a lot of progress since then. Because I remember when Arista first talked about Wi-Fi and its acquisition of Mojo, you guys didn't even have a PoE switch then. And
Yep, that's
yeah. So you're progressing already. Before it was just data center, right? And now you're putting together a full stack solution. You're including all of this in the dashboard, implementing network assurance, and now having this. What I really like about Arista is the client journey and how you're able to determine what an issue is, find root causes, and be able to help users or network operators get down to what the real solution is.
right. The real solution, what the real issue is, versus trying to track down, you know, by going into every device, doing CLI commands, scrapes, stuff like that. Really being able to figure that out. And you know, I think you saw when Heather was just going through in terms of, hey, how do I set up a secured edge infrastructure? And I can just click on one, you know, I'm going to sync my VPN settings. Anyone who's done any VPN in any sort of scale, that is a huge simplification of what in the past has been a very complicated effort. And so you don't have to be, again, you know, if you want to have a solution that's simple to deploy, provides you that information in an easy to understand and consume way, you know, that's what we're focusing on. Whether you're a small customer, and small meaning, you know, you manage a doctor's office or you manage a retail location, to large corporate infrastructure, I think it benefits both. It really does, in providing a solution that's easy to understand, and you can and correlating the information on their behalf to present the most likely reason why there is a problem, or as we talked about earlier, you know, being able to say, hey, it's not our issue. Here's
Right.
all the data. You know, it's not the network.
Right, and that's what we're getting towards, is being able to make that call relatively quickly, rather than spending hours troubleshooting,
hours,
sending someone on site to try to collect that data. We're trying to get past that, right? Where everyone's trying to be efficient and not lose this productivity throughout the whole day, when it could have been just a VLAN fix, right?
Yeah. Could be, or just, yeah, VLAN fixes. It could be, you know, just that there was an issue with the actual application, not having to do anything with the network infrastructure. It could be someone fat fingered a firewall rule, and you know, but being able to figure that out very quickly, it's key to what's going on today. And having this data lake that I talked about earlier, having all of the, you talked about the network assurance, our quality of experience, actually putting together what we call the cognitive unified edge, is because it's actually leveraging this repository of data, applying AI and ML techniques and other things we've developed to, you know, separate the wheat from the chaff and present most likely causes without you having to do that, or someone else having to go through and correlate that information by hand.
Okay, so you are implementing AI and machine learning on a lot of this.
Absolutely,
data that you
we've been doing that, and a lot of the things we have models for what is the expected behavior of a lot of applications, and if they're beyond those models that we've tested, we start to take a look at it and say, why are these applications? We know what the way they should behave. What are the reasons why they're not behaving that way, based upon information we know, as well as information we correlated across customers and other use cases.
Awesome.
So
Francois, you have any questions?
I'm gonna ask a more practical question. If someone wants to try out your product, where do they need to go? Do you guys have any PoE programs? How does the licensing work? Do you have some trial, licenses? Can you give us a little bit more details about all of that?
Well, we do have a post. We're going to say something, Heather. I'm happy to.
You can start, and I'll fill in on the edge.
Okay, sure, no problem. So you can go to any Arista certified channel partner as a beginning, and we actually have a list of them who are focused in on the converged unified edge, and they can work together with you to either do one of two things. They can either provide demo equipment if you need the APs and physical equipment to deploy at your site to do a POC. We also have the ability, and I think this is where Heather's going to talk, we have the ability for you to actually virtually do this. We have a couple of ways of doing that. I'll let Heather go in a little bit more detail about this, but you can actually be able to download these the next generation firewall, the secured edge, and install them on servers you may have on site. We actually can provide demos and POCs of the converged unified edge through our channel partners, or even by going to your Arista account manager. But I'll let Heather, you were going to talk a little bit more about the edge threat management piece, which are virtual and could potentially be leveraged or seen a little bit easier.
Yeah, no, you got it pretty good there. Yeah, so multiple ways you can install NG Firewall, as Ed said, on anything that you can install an OVA or an ISO file on. You could put it into AWS to test it out as well, or you could put it in VMware, VirtualBox, or anything like that. We also have a couple of live demo sites. So if you just want to get an idea for the GUI before you install your own to play around with it, then there's a couple of demo sites that you can get to, and that has a live version of NG Firewall running, and there's a live version of Micro Edge as well that you can play around with and take a look at, and they have traffic flowing through them so that you can see most of the features and functionality.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us, Heather, Ed, for giving us this look into what's new at Arista, and really looking forward to seeing more of the integration of your other products, and hopefully we'll also see you at a future mobility field day.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. As always, we love talking to you guys, and appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank
you guys.
Thank you guys.